Hello and welcome to the Runners World podcast with me, Rick Pearson.
And me, Ben Hobson.
Today we're talking with Sabrina Pace-Humphreys about her new book, Black Sheep.
We spoke to Sabrina a little bit ago, but it was one of our most technologically advanced recordings as we spoke to her at the side of the M6 in a service station.
She was on the M6, wasn't she?
We weren't roving. It wasn't roving reporting. We went out there in the chasing people down at the side of the road. No, but that was great to catch up, talk to her. So
Yeah, exactly. Her book is all about it's about her running, but also her upbringing, the kind of racism that she would experience in kind of rural Britain, and she felt like there wasn't a subject like rural racism wasn't really something that was talked about in the same way that there are several books about the kind of racism in cities, but she wanted to talk about in the countryside. And she's obviously part of Black Trail Runners and doing great things to make trail running more diverse. So great to chat to her about all those things. But Ben, before all that, tell us about your running. What you've been up to?
Nothing to blow your mind with, sadly, Rick. I'm going to say I've had some product come through.
Could have made something up.
I'm going to make something up. No, I've had some stuff come through from a gear point of view, testing that's coming out. The embargo lifts this week, so I can't say what it is, but it's a very fast shoe and it's a bit bonkers. And
has it got 4 or 5 carbon plates?
It's got several hundred carbon plates in it and a rocket. And also, no, but they are mad. And so did some running in those last week and a bit the week before. I've got ill again, Rick. I got ill again and then couldn't run for a little bit, so I sort of tried to pack more running into last week than I probably should have.
Okay.
But anyway, so we had some interesting bits and pieces come through, and we got new Garmin watches that we're testing, the 955, and just bits and bits of tech, which I always love doing.
You're the tech guy, I think, really, in our team.
I really enjoy it. I think it's all fascinating that we're somewhat tied to these bits of equipment that can make running such a different activity than it ever was. I find it fascinating. But anyway, but the running itself has been all good. What about you?
Yeah, been trying to add in a bit more quality work, I guess, because I think having come back from the NEOP, I've been kind of just focusing principally on just getting out semi-regularly again. But I'm going to try. Did a little bit of stuff this morning. It's just like not a huge session at all. I think I just did like 3 times a kilometre. Because I feel like with speed work, you can think like, what did I used to be able to do? And then suddenly you're injured again. So I was like, I'm going to do 3 times a kilometre along with some easy running like before and afterwards. And there's a kilometre loop on the park. I swear it's longer. I'm like, that's not a kilometre. There's no way I'm trying really hard and doing it that time. But it was good. I mean, that's the thing about I always think hard running is like the idea of hard running is the worst part, really. When you're actually in it, and certainly after it, there's a sort of it's quite life affirming in some ways. So it's actually quite nice to do a bit. So I'm definitely going to try and keep in touch at least a couple of times a week with like some quality running. But I think the bigger news was over in Wales this weekend when a man did indeed beat a horse in the man versus horse marathon.
Come on, it's the news everyone's been waiting for.
It's incredible, yeah. It's very rare. I mean, I think that race has been going for about 35 years now, and it's the 3rd time that a human's beaten a horse. And Ricky Lightfoot, the great fell runner from the Lakes, came down and beat the horse. He took home $3,500, which isn't bad, is it, for a kind of fairly small scale race?
Yeah, it's great. When you mentioned your speed work, Rick, and been now that there is a baby in your house alongside another child, how are you doing from a sleep point of view?
Oh, not too bad. It's working fine. I think realistically, am I going to run my best running for a couple of years? Probably not, but I can get out enough to do something that I'm like proud of.
It sounds like you're getting some sleep, which is what I'm getting round to.
I am.
I'm not, and it got me. It's been really bad, and it reminded me of a study that came out in 2014, which is it was called Chronic Lack of Sleep Association with Increased Sports Injuries in Adolescent Athletes. So it's adolescents, but anyway, it's from 2014. But it's likelihood of injury based on hours of sleep per night. And athletes who slept an average of 8 hours per night, 8 hours or less, have a 1.7 times greater risk of being injured than those who slept for 8 or more hours.
Eight or more feels like quite a way off for me at the minute.
I do not remember the last time I got close to 7. So to 8. So basically, sleep. Sleep is crucial, Rick, in this.
It's even better than those compression socks, actually.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I reckon I could get by on 4 hours of sleep. As long as my calves are all warm and snug, I'll be all right.
Beetroot juice, compression socks, and 4 hours sleep.
Dreamy.
There you go. You're fine. Well, actually, on the sleep front, this is going to make you feel bad, Ben, but Ricky Lightfoot said he hadn't slept for 24 hours before the race of Man vs Horse, because he'd been I think over in not the Canary Islands but somewhere like that, and had flown straight back, and then he had to wake up at 4 a.m. or something to drive sort of almost from the airport to the race, go and beat a horse over 22 miles,
All right, well,
and then go home to be a firefighter. So he's a hero, isn't he? He's a hero.
He's a horse-beating hero.
And with a brilliant name as well, Lightfoot. Imagine you'd be a better runner immediately if you were called Ben Lightfoot.
Go deep hole, here I come.
Right, well, I think we should probably get our guest of the week on. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Guest of the week, here in the studio. Guest of the week, sometimes on the phone. Could be an athlete, could be a physio, or a complete unknown.
Well, Sabrina, welcome back to the Runners World podcast. Last time we had you on, you were talking with Sonny about black trail runners. Could you give us a quick update on where that is? What have the developments been since we talked about a year ago? And remind people of what the kind of aims are of black trail runners.
Yeah, well, it was actually more than a year ago, because it was just after we'd launched, and we'll have been launched 2 years this July.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal, the growth of black trail runners. I mean, we initially started, when we were talking to you, really as a community and campaigning group, which is still at our heart, in order to ask the question, why is there a lack of diversity in trail running? Why is there a lack of black people participating in trail running? And I think kind of maybe when we spoke to you, we had maybe a couple of hundred kind of people on Instagram and stuff like that. And now, yeah, we've got thousands of members. We're a registered charity. We were incorporated as a charity last year. We've gone from being purely an online community, which we were when we spoke to you, to now very much an events-driven community comprising of us putting together trail taster days. We've got our first UK event taking place this September, which is the first UK race to be race directed by a black person, marshalled, volunteered by black people, and the entries for that are just phenomenal in terms of the diversity. We have launched into partnerships with various kind of events companies and brands who too are seeking to increase diversity of black and brown people in trail running. It has been, from that small kind of shell of an idea, it has absolutely surpassed all of our expectations. And I mean, it could be a full-time job. We're still volunteer run. But it's our purpose and passion is to grow it, is to continue to address the barriers for black people in trail running, which are kind of around access, skills and representation. So yeah, since we spoke, Rick, it's kind of almost gone stratospheric, really.
That's brilliant. And I didn't know that there were no other races that had a black race director, which is just amazing, isn't it? It shows you, the importance for it, yeah.
Absolutely. And that is important to us because, you can't be what you can't see, which is something that, certainly we say a lot in terms of that representation. So, there is no reason why black people can't be race directors here in the UK or globally. It takes having the right support structure around you. It takes having kind of a great kind of skills base to draw from. And since the beginning of the conception of Black Trail Runners, one of those race events companies that have supported us in the background and have kind of given us the confidence in order, really, I think, to go ahead and put on this race is Centurion Running, James Elson, who heads that up. So yeah, Sonny is our first, what I think is, and I'm sure is the UK's first black race director.
Just goes to show, like, the appetite that was there for people to,
Absolutely.
black people and people of color to run in rural places and in an environment that wasn't the city, in an urban landscape. And it's just, as you say, what you guys have been doing has been great, and it's just lovely to see that people are, or in areas of the country which aren't perhaps always accessible.
That's it. And areas of the areas of the country that have historically been deemed as white spaces, and spaces which you need to have money to get to. You need to have the right kit in order to explore. You need to have the right skills in order to be safe. And we knew, because we had been trail running, the six of us that initially came together with the idea of Black Trail Runners, we know what a healing place the outdoors can be, getting off road and the concept of moving your body forward in whatever way you deem as fit in the countryside, whether that is fast hiking, trail running, running very fast and winning races, whatever that is, the outdoors and the countryside is a place of healing. And certainly in terms of my own journey to trail running and how I use it very much to manage my mental health, my depression and anxiety. So all I want is for more people that look like me to have the opportunity and have the community to be able to do that, And the thing that I say, I think, kind of after we spoke, Rick, on the podcast, I think one of the negative kickbacks that we had was, well, isn't this creating division? Isn't this, dividing the community? And actually, what we aim for is that there will come a point where we don't need to have a Black Trail Runners, because actually the trail running community is full of variety, has that diversity. It doesn't at the moment, and that's why we exist.
And you touched on some of these themes, Sabrina, in your new book, Black Sheep. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you wanted to write it and what it's all about?
Yeah, so I had never, I'll be totally honest and upfront now, I never ever thought I would write a book. It's not something that I had in the life plan. Writing was always something that actually I kind of really shied away from. And it was in lockdown that I was chatting to a friend who's an author. It was after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and then subsequently George Floyd. And when I was kind of starting to talk about Black Trail Runners, I was talking about what it is to be a Black person living in the countryside. For many, many, many years growing up, I did not see other Black people. I did not see other girls, adolescents, 20-somethings that look like me. I live in a small market town in the Cotswolds. And she just basically said to me, Sabrina, I reckon, why don't you start writing some of these things down, some of these stories that you're telling me, because there isn't a book out there that talks about the Black experience of rural racism from a lived experience point of view. And you know what? I was so anxious about it because, you think, as someone that doesn't really necessarily call themselves a writer, or, you think, who wants to listen, And probably about 9 months later, I put together enough material that she took a look at it and then put me in touch with her agent, who subsequently took me on. And 4 months later, I have a kind of auction for my book, which was like blew my mind. That is not something that I ever thought would happen. And so Black Sheep, it's a memoir. It very much focuses on a chronological kind of me growing up, moving to a small market town, my experience of racial abuse, how that impacted upon me. But also, this book very much, I wanted it to be inspirational too. So it contains 12 different experiences, 12 different stories throughout my life. Rural racism being a massive part of that, but also becoming a teenage mum. I was pregnant at 17. I had my first child at 18. Dealing with addiction. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I used running as a way to manage my mental health. I suffered with extreme postnatal depression after the birth of my fourth child. And it was my GP that said, Sabrina, along with medication and talk therapy, why don't you do something for yourself? Why not try jogging? And I hated running. I hated it. I would laugh at road runners as I would be in the car, going to the gym. I'd be like, why are they wearing short shorts? Why, all of that stereotypical stuff.
Yeah.
But, running gave me, and still to this day gave me, headspace. It gave me a point in my day where I could put all of my stresses and strains and struggles aside and just focus on moving my body forward in a way that felt joyful to me. So this book, it chronicles that journey from being a small child right through to, doing the Ramsey round with Black Trail Runners last year, which again is something that Runners World highlighted when we'd done that. So it's kind of from then to now. And I just hope that it includes, as well as the traumatic stories, I just hope that it helps just one person feel seen, feel that's me, that's what my life is or was like, and feels inspired.
We've championed the cause of running as a great sort of medicine, basically, and talked about it in its capabilities of freeing you and allowing you to have a bit of, as you say, time to yourself and a bit more purpose and things like that. When you first started running, as you say, like you hated it, but you kept going. What was it that kept you going?
You know what it was? Can you remember? I don't know if you guys can remember back to the first time you ever ran, but I remember it so vividly. I think because I was so mentally unwell, I've had 4 children. I just had my youngest. I had my 12-week check with my GP, and she had basically said, Sabrina, I think you're suffering from postnatal depression, because I was so low and was having such dark thoughts. But that first run, I remember I wanted it to be somewhere, and I describe it in the book, where no one would see me. I was extremely overweight. So I went down to our local canal towpath, a small bottle of mineral water in one hand, some basketball shoes on, a baggy t-shirt, and just joggers, which were far too thick for me to be running in. And I did it was before Couch to 5K, so there wasn't even a plan that I was following, but I ran for 1 minute. Well, it wasn't even a run. I shuffled for 1 minute and I walked really slowly for 1 minute. And I can remember getting to like half a mile, leaning over these metal barriers, and a friend drove past this canal crossing in a car, and he texted me to say, Sabrina, you look like you're blowing out of your behind. And I was also in all sorts of danger. I was in all sorts of struggle. I just didn't know how I was going to get myself home. But I remember I hadn't had for that, it took me to do that half a mile. It took me like 25, 30 minutes. And the great thing was, Ben, that in that time, I hadn't had thoughts of I shouldn't be here. Those dark thoughts. Like, I didn't have the thought of I'm such a crap mum. I'm bad at all of these things. I don't want to be here anymore. All I focused on was my breathing. Like, remember to breathe, Sabrina. Pick your feet up. Just move yourself forward. It will be over in half an hour. And those things that we tell ourselves, and that I tell myself even now when I'm running, about when I'm really feeling it or when I'm tired or when I'm aching, everything else almost like jumps out of your head for that time, because all you really need to focus on is your breathing, your form, eating, drinking, whatever it might be. And I got back from the run and Neil was like, how was that? And I was like, I hurt in places that I didn't even know existed. But in my head, I didn't hurt as much. And that's what got me going back in a couple of days. And that's what kept me going.
And do you think keeping going and sort of proving to yourself that you are stronger than you might have thought physically and all those things, did that help with your life in general? Did it give you confidence? Did it make you feel more capable of overcoming other challenges?
I think that it made me know that if I put my mind to it, I can do really hard things. I grew up being told, you're not good enough. You're not one of us. What do you think gives you the qualification to be doing this? Look at you. Who would it, all of these things that, not just Black people, but if you're around people that aren't gunning for you, that the people will have experienced. So that act of running, when I was so mentally ill, when I was juggling so many things in my own life, at that point I was running my own business, mother of 4, I was the main breadwinner, there was a lot going on, and to add running to that at that time seemed foolish in a sense, but actually it made me believe that, Sabrina, if you put your mind to it, you can maybe on this run go for 5 minutes more. But it wasn't just that 5 minutes. That then made me think, oh, wow, like in the course of that consistency, in the course of a couple of months, look what I can do now. And then that thought came into my head of, okay, well, what can I do next? You know, that's where the runner's mentality, if you have it, which I do, I'm quite competitive with myself of, okay, I'll do a 10K. Okay, I'll do a half marathon. Oh, and over the course of years, okay, I'll do a marathon. Okay, what's after a marathon? And that's where trail running and ultra running started to come into it.
What is it now that, because I mean, that's such a familiar story of people sort of get very excited about their running and suddenly discover that they can go further and further and further. But what is it? But what is it about ultras now, particularly that you've taken on? What is it about ultra racing and especially trail running that has sort of really captured you as a runner? Like what differentiated that from other runs?
I think if I talk about trail running first, I think that I really was into my road running. I was in a road running club. Again, I was the only black person within that club. I did all the half marathons, gunning for the PB, how much faster can I go? And it got to a point for me with road running where it was becoming more of a tool to hurt myself mentally with, because I couldn't be as fast as such and such who had only started running 6 months ago. And the personality that I am, that I know myself, is that it was starting to become quite destructive. So the reason that I took up running was being lost through this kind of competitive, how much faster, how much harder. And it was only when I went into recovery for alcoholism, which I talk about within the book, and I knew that for my 40th birthday, I wanted to do something different, something that wasn't alcohol fuel, to mark being on the earth for 40 years. And I was watching a documentary and came across a documentary about the Marathon des Sables. And honestly, my route into trail running was in training to do that race. So in 2016, I went from the roads to the trails, because there ain't no roads in the Sahara. And you know what I love about trail running? What I love about trail running is it feeds into everything that is joyful about the process of running to me. It's nature. It's being able to stop during a trail run and enjoy the most beautiful view, whether that's a sunrise or a sunset, or I'm just on my way back from the Peak District at the moment. Being at the top of Pen-y-Ghent or any kind of summit or high hill, and knowing that your legs have actually taken you there, and the skills that you have to navigate the terrain, to learn how to read a map. I never had to learn how to read a map when I was a road runner, but as a trail runner, it's absolutely imperative. And these skills, these things that trail running has given me, which road running never did, are the reason it just keeps me coming back. That sense of space. Within 10 minutes, I can be alone somewhere with no cars, no noise, no people looking at what it is I'm doing. I can just be me and be there and feel totally present in the environment that I'm in. And that's what I love about trail running. What I love about ultra running is that the longer that I'm out, the stronger that I feel. And it sounds quite cliche to say, but the more powerful as a woman and as a black woman, as a mother, I feel the longer I go, because I find in ultra races, and I mean, there's kind of stats to prove it and science to prove it, that females do really well. You know, we are very, very realistic in terms of what our capabilities are. We do a shed load of research in terms of what we need. And we, as a mum and as someone that kind of wants to be as safe as she can out on the trails, I try and put myself in situations when I'm going into an ultra marathon that are kind of almost the worst situations I can be in, so that, like, prepare for the worst. I just love the process of going long. I love that feeling of you don't think there's anything left in the tank, and you get to a checkpoint on an ultra race and someone will give you, I don't know, a packet of ready salted crisps and a pot noodle, and you feel like you're the king of the world because it's exactly what your body needs. I've done the most crazy things in ultra. In lockdown, just after I think I spoke to you, Rick, I can't remember, I went out and did a solo unsupported effort, which was the whole of the Cotswold Way, which was 104 miles.
That's right. Yeah, I thought so. I sent to Ben about that.
Yeah. And I went out and I stuck to all of the, cut-offs for the actual race, which there is, called the Cotswold Way Century, which wasn't actually on that year. And my husband was, my crew in the camper van. Because I love seeing what my body can do and pushing through that barrier of you think that you're at your limit, but actually you're only at 45% of your limit. And that's what I love about ultras. It's what I love about long distance running. It's that the body's ability to keep going and the mind's ability to actually, because, after 100 or so miles, the mind, the mental strength kind of has to kick in. And I think through what I've been through that I talk about in the book, it's given me a mental resilience, which allows me to train to do the spine race in 2 months.
This is a sort of I'm actually just more interested in this as a general question. We often talk to mums who run, and they talk about how running and testing themselves. And I've watched my partner produce 2 wonderful boys for as part of our family, and what she has done in terms of giving birth far far surpasses anything I could possibly do running in terms of endurance. So it's quite interesting to hear you talk about how you separate you sort of, there's the 2 things are separate. I know that obviously childbirth and running are 2 very, very separate things, but the sort of and we talk about women and how successful they are in ultras and that sort of level of endurance. Do you draw any parallels? Do you see any sort of like similarities in women's ability to sort of produce children and how phenomenal that is and how it relates to just levels of endurance, or am I just sort of speculating?
I absolutely do. I mean, I've got 4 children and 3 grandchildren now, and I can remember when I was in labour with my 4th, and I can remember saying to my husband, absolutely having nothing left in the tank and contractions ravaging my body, and I remember looking up at him and just saying, I cannot do this. Like, I can't do this. And it's funny because when I did the Cotswold Way Century and other kind of ultras that he supported me on since, or when I did the Cotswold Way kind of unsupported kind of my own effort, there was one point in that when I was climbing up towards, I think it was Coley Peak on the Cotswold Way, which is like 65 miles. And there was this party atmosphere up there, my husband said. And, there was even a balloon arch. I think some of my friends had gone out for me. And he said, when you rounded the corner, I had been so sick on the way up. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't take any fluid on board. I really thought just paralleled labour. That was, I don't know what more I have to give. And he said, you turn the corner and the vibe dropped massively because everyone could just see in your face. And he said, I thought that was it. I thought it was over. I had one of my best friends is a midwife, and she kind of was helping him at that point. And she undressed me, dressed me again, shoving food down my throat. And I got out of that checkpoint and I thought, I don't know, just like in labour, like, I don't know if I can do this. Although in labour, you've got to deliver the baby. But within a couple of seconds of like being cared for, having that food in me, having a word with myself and saying, look, all it is a run and you can stop this at any time. You've given birth to 4 children naturally. There was just that kicker in terms of like the mental, that devil on my shoulder that's like, come on now. And I think having the experience of being in that stage 4 times in labour just gave me, I think, this advantage and gives women that advantage. Like, if we can do that, this is a run. Like, this is a run. Like, we're doing this through choice. We're doing it kind of for like fun, type 2 fun or whatever. But this is something that we choose to do, and we're privileged to be able to do it. And yes, our bodies hurt. No, yes, we're not sure how we're going to put one step in front of the other. But hey, we're mothers, we're mothers. We've done it. We bring up children. We juggle so much. this is, this is supposed to be fun. And I can remember telling myself that. Then the pot noodle kicked in, the electrolytes started to, do their thing. And I was able to complete it. So I do think that females with what they go through in terms of growing babies, delivering babies, looking after their children, and everything else that goes into that, the mental struggles. I have children of different ages now. My oldest is 26 tomorrow. My youngest is 12. The mental struggle of dealing with those different developmental ages just mean that I've been able to employ some of the strategies that actually I use in ultra running to my motherhood and vice versa. So I feel that I've got a unique set of skills, as many women have, to go long and to be able to go long and be strong at going long.
What do your children make of your running, Sabrina? Are they taking up running themselves? Are they big fans of what you've done on the trails?
Rick, they're so bored of it, Rick. They're so bored. They're so. I wish I could sit here and say, oh yeah, I've got future kind of trail running stars.
They're always crewing for you, right?
No. I've got my 12-year-old in the car next to this camper van now, and she said to me, "Have you finished on the Pennine Way now? Can we go home? Can we please go home?" They always say to me, if you talk about the Marathon des Sables one more time, it's over, it's done, move on. I know that they're proud of me, and one day I hope that one of my 3 girls or my son or my 3 grandsons will indulge me with running with me or taking up running so I can support them. But right now, enough, mother, enough. And I'm like, it's never gonna stop. I love running. I love the community of that it's given me. I love the friends, and it's, hey, I'm trustee of a charity called Black Trail Runners. It's always going to be there. I'm always going to be in this game.
What have you got coming up for the rest of this year? What are the big plans?
Oh yeah, so I've got, obviously the book is book's available for pre-order now. It's being launched on the 9th of June, and then I've got Isle of Wight Ultra in 2 weeks' time, so I'm leaving for that as a B race, just as a sharpener. And then on the 19th of June I set off on what will be my longest ultra to date, which is the Summer Spine. So the whole of the Pennine Way, 268 miles, Edale to Celt'Yetholm. Unsupported. So it's scary, the thought of you can't have crew, checkpoint to checkpoint. Checkpoints aren't every 10k, which is kind of what I've been used to on ultras. I've been testing out a lot of kit. What the summer can be like here in the UK. It can be almost just as, I mean, I was on Crossfell recceing from Dufton to Crossfell over to Greg's Hat on Sunday, and there was snow. There was snow on the tops. It was crazy. So that's my big event of the kind of first half of the year. Depending on how well I do there, I'm potentially going to actually do the proper Cotswold Way Century race in September, just to get the medal, because a bit of bling. And then as I said, we've got the big event in terms of the community and the charity is our first run event, Black to the Trails, which is taking place on the 11th of September at Dunstable Downs. Set to be, based on registrations, the UK's most diverse trail race. It's black and brown people are currently kind of leading the way in terms of registrations. But one thing I want to say here is, although we are Black Trail Runners, Black Trail Runners is a community for you, whether you're black, brown, white, however you describe yourself. If you want to diversify trail running, if you want to look around at events and see different colour faces, you can be a member of Black Trail Runners. Just because we're called Black Trail Runners doesn't segregate and doesn't stop white people from joining us. It's something I said in a talk I did last night, is that we know that to create a truly diverse trail running environment, we need support across the board, and we need members across the board. Yes, ultimately, we're a safe space and a safe community for Black trail runners, but ultimately, we know it's the support of everyone that is going to make trail running a totally diverse sport, the sport that we want to see, to the point where we don't really want to have a Black trail runners, because trail running is totally inclusive. So yeah, those are the kind of big things that are happening this year that will keep me busy.
Well, really exciting stuff. And thanks very, very much for making the time to come on the podcast and tell us about your book and the plans for the year and Black Trail Runners again. And yeah, best of luck with all of it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much for the interview, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
So that brings us to the end of this week's Runners World podcast. A huge thanks to our guest, Sabrina Pace-Humphreys, and to you, of course, for listening.
You can subscribe to Runners World magazine. Go to the internet and search Runners World UK subscription. And then you can get the magazine delivered to your house every single month, which is a great treat to have. Visit runnersworld.com/UK to find all your running needs on the internet. And of course, with this podcast, share it with your friends. Make sure you've subscribed. And if you haven't already, just search on the app that you're listening on now for Runners World UK and then find the podcast and subscribe, which is probably a long way of doing it. But just make sure you subscribe. That's the message. Thanks for listening, and you will hear from us next week.